Assalamu alaikum all, welcome back to my channel. I pray that you are all in the best of health and iman. If you are new, welcome. My name is Nafisa. I am a Muslimah life coach and I support Muslim women with relationship and mental health issues. So if you're interested in being coached in those areas, you can find me over on my website, which I will leave linked in the description box down below. But over here on YouTube, I make Islamic lifestyle as well as dawah content. So if you're interested in that, then definitely make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. So guys, today is a video to inshallah help those of you who are still in search for your other half. Okay, I want to say better half, but then I'm like, listen, you better be the best version of you, and he comes with his A game, and together you make it work. So those of you who are still in search of your other half, I wanted to make this video inshallah in hope that it will help you to be able to identify when you've actually found the one. One thing I want to mention that I usually mention in my marriage videos is that in Islam, it is not permissible for a Muslim woman to marry a non-Muslim. Okay, so you can't marry a Christian man, you can't marry a Jewish man, you can't marry a man who doesn't believe in God at all. He has to be a Muslim, and there's no negotiation on that. I'm hoping most of you are clear on that rule. Okay, so we're gonna take that as a given. Okay, so I'm gonna list everything else with the mindset that this man is already a Muslim. So on top of him being a Muslim, one of the other things that you may find when you find that right person for you is that that person's desire for you is also reciprocated by you. What I mean by that is that the man is chasing you and you are also interested in him. I say that because I have found, sadly, some sisters that I coach are really struggling in very early on in their marriages simply because they don't find their husbands attractive. And it seems like a very futile thing. And yes, sometimes in marriage, attraction can develop later on, but there needs to be at least a little bit of it to begin the marriage. I don't expect you to go into marriage with a man that you're head over heels in love with, because chances are if you do this according to the Quran and Sunnah, you're not going to have that much time to have already developed this insane love for this man. So it's not that you're going to be so much in love with this man, but there's going to be a level of attraction. And it's going to make it easier for you in your marriage when you are attracted to your husband. It's going to make it easy for you to fulfill your husband's rights over you. So one of the husband's rights over his wife is that when he wants physical intimacy and she's able to do it, that she responds well to that. And sometimes when you're unattracted to your own husband, how do you think you're going to be able to fulfill that need? Sometimes it just doesn't happen. So attraction may not always be physical. This can also involve emotional as well as psychological attraction. Just make sure that there is something there that is also drawing you to this man. So what I want you guys to avoid, sisters, is a situation whereby the man is the only one chasing you and you're kind of like, yeah, well, you know, kind of getting old and, you know, he does have money and I guess I'll just settle. I guess the feelings will come later on. It might, no. He needs to be pursuing you and you also need to be responding well to his pursuit of you. So once both attraction is there, that may be one of the first few signs that you have found the one. The second sign that you may have found the one is that there is positive response to your istikhara. I talk about istikhara a lot, guys, because it has saved my life in terms of me making a choice about who to marry. If you don't know, or maybe you're new to this channel, I just got married less than 4 months ago. I'm forgetting already. Less than 4 months ago. And before that, it took me a while to make a choice of a man that I wanted. But I also knew that I didn't know what was ahead of me. And I couldn't tell everything about a man. It doesn't matter how smart you are or how intelligent you are or how many questions you ask someone or how much you try to get to know someone. There are certain aspects of a man that you will never know, that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So we cannot only rely on our own intellect in terms of making a decision, which is why we pray istikhara. And I strongly advise for every woman, Muslim woman, that comes across a man who is interested in marrying her, or maybe she's interested in marrying him, that she begins making istikhara right away. In my experience, istikhara needs to be made consistently. To me, it's like every other dua. If you only ask Allah once versus you ask Him every day to help and support you in making a decision, chances are that you are going to have a higher chance of your dua being accepted if you're consistent with that dua. So you should try to make istikhara at least minimum, I would say, once a week during that talking phase with the man, and then see where Allah guides you. So the sign that you may have found the one is that there is a positive response to your istikhara. What does that look like? It looks like Allah making the path and the way easy for you. My example with the guys that the marriage just didn't work out with was that whenever I made istikhara, I just found that there was just so many things blocking the way. And this is not to say that you're going to make istikhara and everything's going to be perfect all the way along, but you're going to notice that there's a difference in how easy things are for you. You make istikhara, you meet the family's in agreement, your family is in agreement, your heart is happy and content with it. Both of you, things are just generally going right. You might have a few arguments here and there, little bickers or whatever. That's fine. But for the most part, like the big and larger issues don't exist and everything is going smoothly. That is a sign that this is your husband. So if you're happy to pursue it, continue pursuing it, continue making istikhara, and the more you see that the way is being opened for you and nothing is blocking your path of marriage, then that could be a sign that this man is your husband. The next sign that you may have met your husband is that he meets your core values. So you and I have, we should have, the things that are most important to us, the things that we know are non-negotiables when it comes to a man in our life, or the man that we will end up being married to. So, for example, again, using myself as an example, one of my non-negotiables is actually something that other sisters can easily tolerate. But one of my non-negotiables is that my husband can't smoke, because the smell of cigarette is one of the smells that I hate the most in my life. So I can't imagine even being able to come close to my husband when he smells like that. So I knew that if a man had a habit of smoking, it just can't work between us, because I just simply can't live with you, because I have a very sensitive nose. So what is important to you may be different to what's important to me, but we all have our core values that we're like, no, this thing has to be there. Apart from him being a Muslim, these other characteristics has to be there for it to work between us. So you have to figure out what your core values are. And sometimes I feel like a lot of sisters feel like they're ready for marriage, but they don't even know what they're looking for. And they're kind of like, yeah, but I'll know when I kind of find it. And it's like, maybe take a second, think about it, and try to jot down what your core values are. You should at least have 4 to 5 things that are like non-negotiables. Like, it has to be this thing or it won't work out, right? So when you found the right person, you will find that they meet your core values. You find that man will be someone who is aligned with what you are looking for in a man. Because sometimes the problem with taking someone or accepting someone's proposal who doesn't meet your core values is that you're always going to feel like you settled. And initially you might think, well, I can hide it from him. He won't be able to tell. He will be able to tell. Because in the marriage in and of itself, there's going to be certain things that you do unintentionally that's going to make him feel like, I'm not a priority in her life. I'm not really the type of man that she wants. She thinks she's better than me. She feels like she just settled for me just because she didn't have any other choice. And nobody wants to be in a marriage where they feel like that. So if a man's core values meets your core values and you're both in agreement with how you want your life to move ahead, then that is also a sign that you may have met the one. Next is that you are content with his character. Alongside that, I also want to add the issue of compatibility when it comes to both your characters. Sometimes there are two people. They have their flaws, but they may be so similar that they just don't gel very well together. For example, if you have someone who has a very bad temper, he's probably going to do better with a spouse who doesn't get angry so easily. Versus when you have two people who get heated very, very quickly, the chances of that marriage lasting is probably not going to be that high, because who's going to back down? And in a relationship, in a marriage, sometimes you need that person who's just going to be like, you know what, we can handle this later, who can just maintain that sense of calm. It's just an example that I'm giving to you. So if you meet a man who you feel that your character is compatible with his, then that may be one of the signs that you have met the one. Next sign that you may have met the one is that your goals align. And sometimes in life, this can be one of the causes of divorce, when the goals of life don't align. So for example, if one person's goal is to move abroad halfway across the world, but the other person is like, I'm absolutely not leaving this country where I'm at. This is where I'm going to retire. This is where I'm going to have my kids. There's just no way I'm going anywhere else. You have a conflict right there. And if both people are very strong in their desires, in their goals for their life and for their future, then they may not be the ones for each other, because again, goals don't align. And when goals don't align, there's going to be friction, and that could add stress to the marriage. So if your goals do align and you're both happy with where you're going, which is why you should talk about this in marriage, you should speak about what each other's goals are, so you can have an idea of what your future might look like. You don't want to get married 6 months time, your husband's like, pack up, we're moving. You're like, wait, what? And I'm not going. And then you end up having issues, because I know of a few stories of some women who've ended up in this type of situation, and then they've ended up being divorced because the husband is absolutely like firm on building his life somewhere else in the world, and the wife is like, but here is my home and this is where I know. And then they haven't been able to reconcile that situation. So if your goals align, it may be a sign that you've met the right one. Next point, your lifestyle align. And then you're like, lifestyle align? Yes. See, let's give an example of, let's say you're a sister, you take your deen seriously. I'm assuming, because if you watch this channel, then you're clearly interested in improving yourself for the sake of Allah. So let's say you're a sister, you take your deen quite seriously, and you marry a man who, not really. So over the weekend, you might be in the masjid with your kids, having some Islamic classes, some Quran classes, tajweed classes or whatever. And where is your husband? He might be in the club, getting down with the ladies. Your lifestyle don't align. Sometimes people say, oh, but you're so picky, to sisters who have certain mindset. But it's like, sometimes it's very important for them to find someone that their lifestyle aligns with. When the lifestyle aligns, it's just going to make things so much more easier. If you're at the masjid taking the kids every now and again, even if your husband's at work and he doesn't always have time, if your lifestyles align, once in a while when he is at home on a Friday, he can also take the kids to Jummah prayers. Do you understand? Like, it just makes life easier. That way you don't feel like you're forcing someone to be someone that they're not. So your lifestyle being in an alignment can be a really, really good sign that you may have found the one. The next one is quite controversial, because sometimes this can be a sign and sometimes it might not be. And it is that your family are in agreement with your marriage. I've known some marriages where both families are not in agreement. The couples have gone ahead to get married and it's worked out. I've also known of some marriages where the families are not in an agreement. The couples have gone ahead to get married and it worked out for some time and then ended in divorce. And I've also known of certain situations whereby the family are not in agreement for the marriage and the marriage never happened. I think it's a heavy burden for you as a woman, especially because most of my audience are women, for you as a woman to go into a marriage and enter into a new family that don't actually want you. It's different when it's maybe just like one or two people in that family. But when it's the majority of the family, like, your love and your relationship with your husband has to be extremely strong for it to forever survive that battle. The family not being in an agreement can be a sign that, maybe this is a situation that I shouldn't get myself involved in. And therefore, if the families are in an agreement with each other, they are content with the both of you getting married, it could be a good sign that you have found the one. And I'm not saying that, sometimes people don't pretend. Sometimes families pretend. They pretend to like you, and then once you get married, the true colors start showing. And again, this is why istikhara is really important in you making your final decision about who to marry. But I'm saying, generally, if both families are happy about it, then it could be a good sign that this person could be the one. And I'm saying all of this, not individually, but as a collective, all of these together can be a good sign that you have found the one. And the last two that I'm going to mention is, first, that he is protective over you. A man can be everything and more, but when he doesn't understand his core role as a husband, you might have a problem. When your husband supports everybody else on the outside and is willing to protect everybody else on the outside, and you are the last in the list, you have a man who has his priorities in the wrong place. So, if he is protective over you in a healthy way, I must also add that, because I'm sorry, some men have some very unhealthy ideas of what being protective over their wives mean. But I think you know better, and you should also trust your judgment and trust your intuition. When a man has a healthy sense of protection over you, it could be a sign that you found the one. If he has an unhealthy sense of protection over you, you might be involved with a narcissist, and you need to run as far as your feet can take you, okay, sis? You just need to get away from that man. Because some things seem really cute in the beginning. Like, oh my gosh, he calls me like 1 million times in a day. Like, literally, like 50 missed calls. Oh my God, how cute. He's missed me. No. 50 missed calls in an hour ain't cute, sis. Ain't cute. Red flag. You could be in trouble, okay? Because when you're actually married to him and you happen to go to the corner shop without asking his permission, you're going to come home and meet a monster. So if he has a healthy sense of protection over you, that's very important, because a husband is going to need to protect his wife and his children. It's a must. In my eyes, it's a no-brainer. And the last and final thing is that he is willing and making efforts towards providing for you. Why do I say that? And mind you, I said providing for you. I didn't say he's rich. I've never promoted this idea that you just need to go and marry a rich guy, because I've met some men who have money, but to drop a penny is so hard for them. So there are such things as rich and stingy men. Not every rich man is just going to hand over his money to you for you to just go and spend anyhow that you wish. But I do strongly believe in a man working to look after his family. I think this is one of the sad situations that we've ended up in our society nowadays, where men are just getting married and just bringing children into this world that they couldn't care less about taking care of, and the children becomes the government's problem, and so on and so on. So I think if you found the man who is working hard, he seems independent, he's able to take care of himself anyways, and he has the means to also take care of you, I think it's a good sign that you may have found the one. Because marrying a man who cannot take care of you, and he may not be able to give you the world, but as long as he can meet your core needs, he can provide a roof over your head and feed you, and he has all these other characteristics, positive characteristics that I've spoken of, then you may have found the one, sis. The truth is, the 1% are called the 1% for a reason. They are the 1%. So there is the rest of us, the 99%, who are not the top highest earners. There is the 99% of men who are not the top high earners. So looking for a man just for his money, to me, you're going to land yourself in a problem if the only thing you're looking at is a man's finances. I think all of these areas that I have mentioned are really important for you to look at. And if you can tick most of the boxes here and you're happy with this person, then you may have found the one. So guys, everything I've mentioned in this video is for you to look at collectively as a whole. I'm not saying that one of these things is met and then you think, woohoo, I found my husband, because if you neglect other areas, you may also end up in trouble. But if you've taken anything out of this video, I really want you to take the fact that you really want to consult Allah in your decision making. And consulting Allah in your decision making and Him making it easy for you, what that means is that this is the person that Allah has decided that you will marry. It doesn't mean that your marriage will last forever and you'll be happily ever after married and never come across any issues. That's not what it means. It just means that Allah is in an agreement with this marriage and that is good for your deen and your dunya. Whether you understand why it's good for your deen and your dunya is irrelevant, really, because if Allah makes a decision for you, then He knows in His own wisdom why He made that decision for you. And I just want sisters to remember that, because sometimes some sisters say, I remember making istikhara before I got married and then I ended up being divorced. So, was my istikhara not accepted? Did Allah just not respond to me? What happened? Allah's not saying that this is going to be your forever marriage. It could be, and I pray that every good marriage lasts. But, I also understand that as human beings, we have the ability to make choices, okay? And if someone is making a bad choice and they are no longer good for you and Allah removes you from that situation, then alhamdulillah, okay? But all I'm saying here is that consult Allah in every decision that you make before you make a final decision, especially as it concerns to marriage. And I hope that these some of these things that I've mentioned will be helpful for you in making your final decision. May Allah guide us in all of the decisions that we make. And sisters, or maybe brothers, if you're watching, if you know of anyone that you feel will benefit from the content of today's video, then please make sure you share this video with that person. And may Allah reward you for your efforts in His cause and reward me and all of us. Ameen. And inshallah ta'ala, I will see you guys in my next video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.